Tonight, you are going to pick up your phone for no reason. You won't even decide to do it. Your hand will just move. Your thumb will unlock the screen before your brain registers what happened. You'll scroll for a few seconds, find nothing new, put it down, and then, less than 2 minutes later, do it again. You've noticed this. You've probably felt a little ashamed of it. You've told yourself you need to stop. But the real answer to why you can't is far stranger than a bad habit, and it reaches back hundreds of thousands of years before the first screen was ever turned on. Your brain is not malfunctioning. Your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem is that what it was built to do no longer matches the world you live in. Here is what's actually happening inside your skull every time your hand moves toward that phone. Your brain runs on a system that neuroscientists call the dopamine reward loop. You've heard of dopamine. Most people think of it as the pleasure chemical, the thing that floods your system when something feels good. But that's not quite right. Dopamine researcher Kent Berridge at the University of Michigan spent decades separating two things most people treat as the same: wanting and liking. His research showed that dopamine doesn't actually fire when you get a reward, it fires when you anticipate one. It fires in the space between reaching and receiving. It fires in the gap. That gap is exactly where your phone lives. When you pick up your phone, you don't know what you're going to find. Maybe a message, maybe nothing. Maybe something that makes you laugh, maybe something that makes you angry. The uncertainty is not the problem. The uncertainty is the entire mechanism. Your brain doesn't chase certainty, it chases the possibility of reward. And the more unpredictable the reward, the harder it chases. Psychologist B.F. Skinner demonstrated this in the 1950s with a now famous series of experiments. He placed animals in boxes with levers. When a lever press always produced food, the animals pressed it calmly, regularly, and stopped when they were full. But when the lever produced food only sometimes, randomly, unpredictably, the animals pressed it obsessively. They pressed it even when they weren't hungry. They pressed it hundreds of times in a row. They pressed it as if stopping was physically impossible. Skinner called this a variable ratio reinforcement schedule. It is the most powerful behavioral conditioning pattern ever identified, and your phone is built on it. You open Instagram, and sometimes there are 15 new notifications. Sometimes there are none. You check your email, and sometimes there's news that changes your day. Sometimes there's a coupon for a store you've never been to. You open a news app, and sometimes something major has happened. Sometimes the top story is about a tax policy in a country you don't live in. You never know. And that is not an accident. But here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Your phone did not invent this loop. It inherited it. Go back 50,000 years. You are standing on an open grassland. You are scanning the horizon. You are listening. You are alert. Your brain is running a constant low-level search process. Are there threats nearby? Is there food? Has anything changed since the last time you looked? This was not anxiety. This was intelligence. The humans who scanned regularly, who checked their environment compulsively, who could not stop themselves from looking one more time, those humans survived. They spotted the predator. They found the fruit. They noticed when the sky changed before the storm. The humans who were relaxed, unbothered, checked out, many of them didn't make it. Your hypervigilance is not a flaw, it is a trophy. It is proof that your ancestors were the paranoid ones, and the paranoid ones won. The neuroscientist Jaak Panksepp, who spent his career mapping the emotional systems of the mammalian brain, identified what he called the seeking system, a dedicated neural circuit that drives all mammals to constantly explore their environment, to look for things, to search. This system doesn't have an off switch. It doesn't rest when you've found enough. It keeps running because in the ancestral environment, the cost of missing something was death. Your phone plugged directly into the seeking system and turned the voltage up. Every notification is a rustle in the grass. Every unread message is a shadow on the horizon. Your brain cannot tell the difference between "there might be a lion" and "there might be a like on my photo." The threat detection and reward detection systems that kept your ancestors alive are now being triggered an average of 96 times per day, which is how often, according to a 2023 study in the journal Computers in Human Behavior, the average smartphone user picks up their device. 96 times, every day. And here is the cruelest part. The more you check, the less satisfied you feel. Because every time you find nothing, every time the screen shows no new information, your brain doesn't conclude that there is nothing to find. It concludes that you need to check again, sooner, more often. The absence of reward doesn't kill the loop. It feeds it. This is what researchers call the novelty bias. Your brain assigns disproportionate value to new information, not because new information is always important, but because in the ancestral environment, new information was almost always relevant. A new sound meant something had changed. A new smell meant something had entered the area. Your brain is calibrated to treat novelty itself as meaningful, independent of whether it actually is. Social media algorithms understand this better than you understand yourself. Every feed is engineered to serve new content in an endless stream, not because the content is good, but because newness alone is enough to trigger your ancient detection system and keep you scrolling. The algorithm doesn't need to show you something important. It just needs to show you something you haven't seen before. And then it needs to do it again. Now consider what this means for your attention, because attention is not infinite. Every time your brain fires the seeking signal, every ping, every buzz, every involuntary phone pickup, it pulls cognitive resources away from whatever you were doing. Research from Gloria Mark at the University of California, Irvine found that after an interruption, it takes an average of 23 minutes for your brain to return to deep focus on a complex task. 23 minutes. And most people are interrupted, or interrupt themselves, far more frequently than that. You are not distracted because you lack willpower. You are distracted because your brain is successfully doing its job in an environment that was not designed for human brains. The savannah didn't send you 47 notifications before noon. So what do? Because knowing this doesn't automatically fix it. Understanding the trap doesn't open the door. The first thing worth knowing is that friction works. Your brain's seeking system is fast, automatic, and effortless. It doesn't make decisions, it just fires. Which means the best counter isn't discipline, it's distance. If your phone is across the room, the reflex still fires, but by the time you've stood up and walked over, the prefrontal cortex, the planning reasoning part of your brain, has had time to engage. You can make an actual decision. You can ask yourself what you're looking for. Most of the time, there is no answer. The second thing worth knowing is that the loop has a natural rhythm. Your brain's attention operates in cycles roughly 90 minutes long, what sleep researcher Nathaniel Kleitman originally identified as the basic rest-activity cycle. During the low points in those cycles, the seeking system gets louder. You feel restless. You feel the pull toward the phone. Understanding that the urge is biological and cyclical, not a sign that something is wrong or missing, changes your relationship to it. You don't have to obey every signal your nervous system sends. And the third thing, perhaps the most important, is that your brain's need to seek is not the problem. Seeking is how you learn. Seeking is how you connect. Seeking is how every important thing in human history got discovered. The question is what you're pointing it at. Your ancestors pointed their seeking system at the horizon and found new continents, at the night sky and found the laws of physics, at the world around them and found fire, language, medicine, music, meaning. Tonight, when your hand moves toward your phone and your thumb unlocks the screen before you've decided to, pause. Just for a second. Not to judge yourself, just to notice. You are not addicted to your phone. You are a creature built to scan the horizon, living in a world that has replaced the horizon with a glowing rectangle in your pocket. Your hand is moving because it was shaped, over hundreds of thousands of years, to reach for what might matter next. The question your ancestors never had to answer, and the one only you can answer, is whether what's on that screen is actually worth the reach.